Hello and welcome to the Alchemists Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people, and my computer's so far away you can actually see my hands on the video now. So I'm like, don't really sit on your hands, Krista. Geez.
No, it's fine. I'm Emily.
I'm KristaLyn.
We're in the same room.
I know, we're together this time, which may happen more and more with the opportunities that are coming up. Post Mars retrograde is what I'm expecting, but absolutely post Mercury retrograde, because we're going to be talking about in this episode Mercury direct.
We are ready. We're not there yet as this is recording. Actually, we still feel very far away.
We've experienced things just 2 minutes ago. My computer survives thanks to adapting to Mercury retrograde and coffee.
Quick towels and quick locations to mop up coffee, which just happened. But yeah, so this episode is going to be really fun because it's the first time we're talking about a topic that was voted on in the Patreon, which is really exciting. So we're going to, of course, still do our astrology, still talk about what you can expect from this week. But one of the tiers in our Patreon allows you to vote on episode topics, and we will keep those kind of switching and changing so that you can, vote on stuff throughout time. And this is the first one. We kind of made it general for this first one of like what to vote on as like more categories based on like specific niche topics. And so the category that we're picking is kind of clairsenses, psychic ability stuff because it's the vote, and the vote was kind of tied. So we're going off of that.
The good news is you guys are interested in all of it, which means we will be speaking at some point on all of it. And if you have more specific suggestions to go along with the things that are being voted on, send us what your suggestion is, because we'll have people vote on that too, which is going to make it even more your podcast.
Yeah. And of course, we will answer a question at the end as well. Plus, it is a bookend episode.
It is a bookend episode, which is great because I need to finish the book I'm currently reading before Libby takes it away from me.
Yeah. But you can at least talk about it. You're really close.
Yes.
You're nearby. So yay, we have all sorts of fun stuff, and Mercury is going direct. We get to talk about it.
It was a crazy one.
Yeah. Let us know on the YouTube or comments, or, you can even email us, forgottenstorytellers@gmail.com, or if you're on the Patreon, post there. How was it?
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Bonus points if you look up where Libra, and also starting on today, which is, what is today? The 23rd. Thanks. The 23rd of September, Virgo. So look at Libra and Virgo in your chart, and then think about how the Mercury retrograde affected those areas of your life that are the houses ruled by Libra and Virgo. My God. And you're talking. That is also ruled by Mercury. So sheesh.
It's been really interesting because personally, I have a very strong Libra placement. So I'm like a Libra rising. And I can feel the shift from just today. Obviously, this is, when you listen to this, it'll be about a week ago. But for today, I can actually feel the shift from my Libra being pressured and out of that, because it's so prominent in my chart. I'm like, like the Mercury shifting, I genuinely like feel the energy moving, and I'm so glad.
And take note on the 23rd, which is the day we're recording this. So today we'll have to keep track of how today goes, because today is that Mercury Cazimi, which is like little quick astro thing. When a planet gets to within 8 degrees of the sun, it's considered combust because it's so close to the sun you can't see it, but it's also in the beams, under the beams of the sun. So it's just being burned up. Everything it is just absorbed into the sun. It's not really able to do its job until it gets to the heart of the sun, which in a lot of traditions is within 15-degree minutes of conjunct with the sun, which Mercury will be today. And Mercury does quite often. But that's the Cazimi you hear about on social media. That's what that is. And it's when they combine to like this, almost like a magnifying glass, honing a beam of light. So it's really potent and can really beam through. It's like a teleporter on Star Trek. So experiencing that on the 23rd, how is that different, more poignant, and possibly sharper, maybe even a little bit better than the experience of Mercury being retrograde in Libra altogether? That's fun to think about.
Yes,
for me.
So when you're listening, I fully agree. But when you're listening to this, think back to the Friday. 23rd. Yeah. And let us know how that went for you. Yeah. So fun thing, Mercury is going retrograde. Yay. I know we also have a couple other transits, so we can cover that before we talk about some of our new topic stuff. Yeah.
This week is not quite as dense with transits as last week. So on snaps for less dense energy.
On that.
So we're actually in October now when we look at our transits.
Yeah.
So the astro overview will likely be up by the time this episode comes out. I still have to record it as of the recording of this video, but I'm gonna get it. Don't you worry. I'm gonna be there. Mercury is retrograde and I'm a little slow this week. It was in my 12th house of unseen enemies, and in more modern context, like self-undoing and mental health situations.
Unseen. I forgot you were having an
Yeah.
Okay, no one's gonna know context in the podcast space, but the unseen enemies thing, I
Yeah.
totally forgot about that, and that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, continue.
Right? Isn't it crazy?
It's like so on the nose.
Nobody's coming to get me, by the way.
No.
The biggest unseen enemy I had was I got pulled over for a speeding ticket. So thinking of things like that as an unseen enemy, among other things that I know you're thinking about.
Whoa, that's crazy cool. I mean, it's not cool, but it's like really, I love when
astrology good.
it applies it so well.
Yeah.
Like just right on the nose.
Yeah,
Okay.
we call that astrology good. It's unfortunate for the person experiencing it, but dang, the astrology got it.
Yeah.
So on the October 1st, we have Venus conjunct the sun in the same Cazimi situation. And at that point, it's also Venus considered in chariot because Venus is at home and so is the sun. So they're in a chariot together. They're kind of like riding shotgun.
Nice.
And they're going to oppose Jupiter. You would think, oh, opposing Jupiter, bad news. Jupiter's still really good. So you have the two benefics. One of them in chariot with the sun, Cazimi the sun, opposing Jupiter, who's still retrograde, but getting ready to like struggle his way back to domicile in Pisces. So some good things still could come of this. It's not as bad as it could be. It's like in Avatar, like the not as big of a jerk as you could have been award. So you're getting clear on the alignment of our actions. We have a lot of this energy of, I want to do stuff. I want to do something that's big and bold and has deep meaning. And I want to connect with people who are like me. And you might find that you connect with the people who are like you that give you a path to accomplishing these big goals that you have. So we're, I also like to compare life to National Treasure. It's just a clue that leads to another clue that leads to another clue. But you are at a clue that is a lot closer to the actual treasure than you were before. So that's something to keep in mind. Also thinking about this as the cycle of Venus with Jupiter. Venus begins a new cycle with the sun on this because she's conjunct the sun, but we're halfway through a Venus-Jupiter cycle that began on April 30th in Pisces during that eclipse. That was the Taurus-Scorpio axis kind of eclipses that were going on at the end of April and beginning of May. So thinking back to then, there was a lot of deciding on allies, on bigger picture issues. In the world, this was countries allying, a lot of talks around NATO and the situation with Ukraine. And in style, Venus and Libra, think about this, power casual became a trend for people who are working at home and trying to dress professional, but like own their space and still be comfortable. And I think power casual definitely deserves a moment.
Okay, so just to touch on power casual style, because I did not see that headline, so I have no conceptual idea of like, I'm sure they're trying to refer to like blazers and looking powerful. My brain went dress like a wizard. That's just immediately where I connected to. Is like, oh, power casual, magic shit, like dress magic. And I like that visual. Like I want a staff at my desk while I'm chilling with my slippers on because wizards get those too.
Yeah. Power casual is like your yoga pant work pants, the like slacks that look, but they're comfy and they look awesome.
Yep.
Which I am here for as a Taurus sun. Make me comfy, but also look awesome at the same time.
Yeah. Judging by those pictures, it's like suits with yoga pants.
Yeah, suits in yoga pant fabric. So you
it's
can
like the business mullet. Yeah. Serious on the top, party on the bottom.
Exactly. The business mullet, aka power casual. I feel like that's Mars's attempt at something in Libra. Would accidentally, I'm like, I'm gonna do power casual, becomes the business mullet.
100%.
Oh my god.
Mars would be in like fluffy pajama pants though, with like a blazer and like a tie. Like, what? I did power casual. It's power and casual.
Yeah. And there's also a lot coming around with like artistic expressions of this divine feminine taking control and really owning that feminine power. Because you also have to think in April, another big headline was the Roe v. Wade situation. The Mercury retrograde back around that time had Musk and his relationship with Twitter. Because remember when that was a thing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Musk trying to find Twitter. I forgot.
yeah,
It's
and
just another thing. There's just too many of the things to remember all the
yeah.
things. So
Well,
good
I mean,
job
you think
keeping
back to
notes.
April, and well, I look up headlines, I Google it
Okay.
because I can't keep track of
I
all
was
of
like,
that.
wow.
I do have notes. I actually keep a log of big things that happen in the transit that they correlate to. You also had the square. So the opening square, kind of the opening number of this Venus Jupiter cycle that we are halfway through now, had this square in July, the end of July, where Roe v. Wade was another situation, but people were using artistic expression, movies, and different forms of entertainment to say, hey, look how meaningful this is. Here's how you can relate to it now, not just looking at the pen and paper, what's going on. And that's also when the conflict between Musk and Twitter started happening. So we have that conflict in relationships, conflicts being the square, Venus being the relationships, and style became a big thing in women's sports. They started,
The shorts thing.
yeah. So you can see how
Forgot about
the
the
things
shorts
from
thing.
April 30th had another moment, had another plot point around July 25th, when we had another series of events regarding this cycle, which we are now going to be in the halfway point of. So those kinds of things may pop back up in the headlines, spiraling or rhyming with what came before, right? We're taking the same concept, but doing it a little bit more up leveled than it was before as we progress the story. And then on the 2nd of October, Mercury will go direct and will be in post shadow until the 16th. So things will start moving forward, and you might notice that you're just like picking up some pieces or reorganizing, especially with Mercury now being in Virgo, direct, domicile, and exalted once again. So we will be kind of resolving any open-ended issues from the retrograde, putting them to rest. And then on the 6th, Mercury will trine Pluto to make it super easy to cut any ties you need to cut, to make any big changes, to do some 180s, like new soul, who this kind of situation. Remembering, yeah, because in mythology, Mercury is Hermes, Pluto is Hades, and Hermes was the one that could go from the living world to Olympus to the underworld and like all of those things, and really like would bring heroes to Elysium or would help out with that transitional thing. So that whole death and rebirth cycle, Hermes is involved, so Mercury is involved, and is very well suited with all of their tools to do what they want to do to help Pluto make these changes around us. So we're thinking like adjustments to nutrition and the systems that guide the processes of food and or the workforce is what I'm looking at. We're also like possibly looking at workers gathering together, people communicating and collaborating and saying, this is the time that we need to fix the system. It's broken. Let's do something completely new, because just trying to mend something isn't creating a new thing that actually supports us going on. We need to demolish and rebuild with a new foundation.
I feel like that's going to cause some very interesting things with the whole Iran situation that's currently going on. I think that's going to be some really intriguing. I'm just like looking at the energy now, and I feel like that's going to be very like big shifts on a world, like the world will actually see them. So somehow I know they're about to cut internet to the country as we speak right now. Go help and support Iranian women. Uranian.
We need some
Uranus.
change.
No, but Iranian women as much as you can. But I feel like there's going to be something where people see that shift actually happen. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm just looking at that energy, and that feels like that's where it's going to.
And I wonder if we see a little bit of that really, as you were saying, being visible. Right now, Venus is under the beams. So this, women kind of archetype is being overshadowed by a very masculine energy. But there's this moment.
You know who it is? Sorry, just the whole Adam Levine thing is overshadowing all of this important news about women.
Yeah.
I think that's just like a really small microcosm of it, but like that's
there's another thing going on politically with certain individuals that I think also is getting more attention. But when Venus has the Kajimi, when Venus has the Kazemi,
we're
with
still
the sun,
in Mercury retrograde recording this.
Can she pierce through that veil and say, hey, pay attention, we need to do something about this? That to me is going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I'm about it.
Of course, as always, nothing to be afraid of, just observing and knowing that there's affirmation for whatever's going on around you, which means that it's not as out of your control or spiraling crazy as it feels. There's meaning and purpose behind it, and you can now actively find the place where you can make your impact.
Yeah.
Because it also doesn't mean that you're powerless. It just means that you are better able to find your staging on the stage and where your character gets to move.
Also, once Mercury goes direct, I feel a lot of like, oh, your spirituality finally gets to come back.
That Pluto.
It's that what's going on. And because I feel so many people are really frustrated with spirituality right now because it feels like they're not getting the clarity and the stuff that they're looking for from it, which has been a very interesting kind of consensus that I've been feeling in that zone. And that's when that energy shifts. Like when I look at it, I'm like, oh, it moves. And all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, I can do this ritual again. Or I feel like pulling a card today. Or, oh, journaling sounds like fun and not a chore anymore. And I think that's going to make a really significant and notable difference.
Yeah, a lot of reflection during the post shadow of like what you've learned and how you're going to apply that moving forward. Also keeping an eye on the first with Venus. Again, this Cazimi with the sun, not only is it Cazimi with the sun, but it is opposite Jupiter, who traditionally, I love how I have a typo there, but anyway, it is, Jupiter is like the spiritual guru kind of planet.
Yeah.
So.
You mean Jupiter?
Jupiter?
Jupiter.
It's fine, you guys. We're just over here. Like, yeah, they are now.
Yeah, I know. We pointed it out.
We're practically imperfect in every way.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is a fun episode to talk about the stuff I think that we're gonna talk about. So, like I said in the Patreon, you guys voted on clairsenses, and we were talking like, well, we've talked through all the clairsenses before. What we do, and right before we were having that conversation, we were having this other conversation about weird and random psychic gifts that we have or that we've come across. And so we decided that's what we're going to talk about with clairsenses, how they present in ways that are like, sometimes psychic gifts feel very superfluous and meaningless. And you're like, why do I have this? Like, what is the point of this?
What purpose does this serve?
And those are still fun to highlight because it just shows you how much more psychic than you give yourself credit you are.
Yeah.
I said words. They kind of made sense. You can connect the dots with them. That's all that matters. It's
feel into what we meant.
I am a coloring book that is yet to be filled. Color it yourself.
I feel like everybody should start a relationship with that. Listen, I'm a coloring book. Fantastic. I love that so much.
Do you know what the picture is? No, that's all that matters.
No, it's colored by, it's one of those paint by numbers and you figure it out as you go. And then you're like, I shouldn't have painted it that color. That was wrong, but it's okay. It's still beautiful.
This horse's eye is purple because I painted it gray.
And now it's a mystic horse or a Kelpie or something.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh so, my goodness.
Speaking of Kelpies, which translates into water, which I'm going to take a leap here because I can do this.
That was some mapping.
Yeah.
Did you?
So getting to water, one of my what I would call, for the purpose of this, my dumbest psychic abilities has always been, if you've ever seen Mean Girls, this is hugely,
if you're watching the YouTube, I'm cluing you in.
I can tell when it's raining, obviously, can't we all? But I can tell when it's gonna rain. I can see it in the air. And so I'll be looking outside and I'll be like, is it raining? Because it kind of looks like it is to me already. And Dan, my poor meteorologist husband, will be like, they're not calling for rain. And I'm like, it's gonna rain. And then it will within usually around like 20 minutes or so, or it's like, I'll be near a body of water. And I'm not typically used to that growing up in the mountains and stuff. So I was working down in Florida and I looked outside and I was like, I think it's gonna rain. And one of my coworkers were like, are you stupid? It's not gonna rain. And then I realized it was really humid and I was seeing the water coming up off of the lake that my store was next to. And I was like, nope, today I am stupid. I forgot I'm actually standing next to a body of water. So I can see water in the air, but I can also, the cool thing about this that I have no practical application for is I can see when lightning's about to strike near me, which has a practical application.
I was just gonna say, that's a practical application. Yeah,
but I can also tell you when your hairdryer is about to spark on you because I can see light in the air hatching, like it like runs along an invisible spiderweb line and then runs up another one. So it creates like this grid work. And the first time I noticed it, we were outside and I was like, I can see, and it like freaked me out because it was like little fireflies darting all over the place, but in a grid work. And so I was like, I can see stuff happening in the air. I don't know what that is. And you take this moment because you're like, I need to remember this. I need to make sure it's real. I need to check it while it's still happening. And it wasn't one of those things where it's corner of your eye or blink and it goes away. So I was watching it and we were actually outside watching a storm approaching. So I said, Dan, I'm just going to say that we should probably get inside. We got inside, lightning struck our yard, which was cool. And like everybody was safe. It was cool.
Terrifying.
It was super cool.
Horribly scary.
And then later, it was like Christmas Eve this time, I was blow drying my hair and I saw those things in my bathroom and I was like, oh, well, lightning struck last time. So maybe, and just this past weekend, I was in Lilydale.
Yeah.
And I was using an electric thing. I started seeing it and I was like, okay, the outlet here is probably bad. I should turn this off. So it has practical uses, but you just never know when it's going to come up. It's like
Right.
one of those flashing like fire alarms.
Mhm.
Like, you can see the matrix, you should stop.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that's fair. It's so interesting. Just a random lightning story, and the reason I'm like lightning, no,
Mm.
thank you. So, I was a horseback trail guide in the mountains. Obviously, I've told you guys about that before. And when you're riding a horse, there's a lot of metal on you because
Yeah.
this saddle and this all sorts of different stuff. And I was guiding, and it's really interesting with pine trees when they are conductors of electricity for a lightning strike. It hollows out the tree, but the tree will keep living, and you can tell what area of the forest gets a lot of lightning activity because all of a sudden you'll be riding through literally like this grove of hollowed out trees that all have like these little like burnt structures. They're great if you need to take a pee in the woods because it's a really secluded little room inside a tree. That's what they look like.
I've actually seen those. My brother called them pea trees and I believed him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're perfect if you need to take a pee in the woods.
Yeah, I know.
But there was certain areas on the trail where it's like, okay, if it's starting to get rainy, like you avoid those spots because your horse is covered in metal. And one time we're out there and it was me and another guide in the back, and like 6 people, and we're riding along, and all of a sudden my horse's mane started to stand up. Like
when you have your hand on the ball.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I was like, get off the horse, like screaming. And we all like got off the horses and we tied them up away from yourself so that you don't get struck. And luckily it didn't strike right there, but it struck like out in the meadow. And it was horrifyingly terrifying. And we hid under the trees till the rain went away.
Oh
I know. So I was just like, no, it's striking in your yard. It's not fun. Like I have horse trauma from there. But I think that's a very practical gift.
I've been oddly close to lightning strikes like at least 3 times in my life.
Of course you have.
I don't have.
Of course you have. That
Maybe
makes
that's
perfect
another
sense.
weird psychic gift that I have.
I don't think it's a psychic gift. That's you just has a very strong magnetic field.
Yeah, well, Scorpio.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so like I was in a car in Arizona or New Mexico. I don't know. It was a storm chase and we covered a lot of ground, but the lightning struck right outside my window. And it was just like flash, boom. And everybody was like, where did that come from? And I was like, right there. It was right there. It was really cool.
Horrible.
Yeah. I've never been struck by lightning, and I've only rarely been electrocuted.
Because the chances once you've been struck by lightning to get struck by lightning again are very high.
Yeah, I've seen there's that one because there's a talisman, actually, I believe it's in Picatrix, to help you avoid being struck by lightning. Yes.
Was that a problem in ancient Greece that they needed
so I was talking with a really prominent, he identifies as a sorcerer because he does a lot of different forms of magic.
Okay.
And I was talking with him and he's like, this is in Picatrix. I don't know how often it was used, but it was there. And so a lot of the time they'll probably be like, this recipe, because of the ingredients, would also be good for, you know?
Oh, it's because Zeus was the lightning god, and if you pissed him off, you didn't want to get struck by lightning.
Possibly. A lot of these books, believe it or not, were written in a Christian context because of the culture of the time that they were writing them, so that they could write them without being condemned.
But still,
well, no, because it was Arabic too.
Oh, okay, then never mind.
So whatever they had, but also you have the planet that would have ruled this. So they're like, in order to pacify this planet, this talisman for this thing could also help you with this. Like it's also good for.
All right, that makes sense.
Yeah, sorry, I want to make sure that I'm giving as accurate information as possible because I know astrological magic is having a moment, and I want to make sure if you're pursuing it, you do it as accurate as possible, because like with a recipe that, like, think about Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda, when you make a recipe and it goes bad, he eats it, he loses a heart.
Yeah.
Don't do that with a talisman.
No. You only have one.
Yeah.
It's not like Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, exactly. We
don't get 16.
Get 20 of them. And this person that I was talking to, his name is Clifford, and he has experimented with these things, and more power to him.
Terrifying.
Yeah. There have been some terrifying results. Talk about like really interesting stories. But one of the things we were talking about was a talisman that would help with lightning. And it made me think of like this one person I've heard of that has been struck by lightning 30 times in their life. And I'm just like, I feel like if I ever find this alignment, I'm going to make this and find that person and be like, here, let's see what it does.
Let's just stop your brain damage for a minute. Yeah. They have really good circulation, that lightning person. Right? Oh my God.
You listen to their heart, it's just like a samba.
If you're the lightning person, we're sorry.
Respect you because you are incredible.
We own it. Okay, so one of my weirdest, I would say, people have tried to suggest ways for me to use this, and honestly, it doesn't work like that. So I will explain. One of my weirdest, I wouldn't say dumbest, I guess, but it's pretty dumb to me because it's literally It's like the incessant noise. If you've ever seen those videos where it's like, this is what it's like with ADHD. Well, obviously I'm neurodivergent, so I already get that already. But for me, it's like what it's like with ADHD plus having this weird psychic ability that's constantly like chattering in the back of your head.
Yes.
Everything I touch all the time, the first thing that comes into my head with it is something to do with how that thing was manufactured, created, or something to do with its like production, transportation at some point in time. If I go into an antique store, I don't touch shit because it's too much. It's overwhelming. I went recently with a friend we were going to thrift shops for her like wedding decor. She's like has a very cool like dark aesthetic. It's really neat. So we needed to get a bunch of like funky stuff for like table centers, and she was gonna paint it all black and like put cool stuff on it. And she was like walking around just touching things, and I kept being like, don't touch that thing. Yeah. Don't touch that thing over there either. Like I don't like the energy of that because it'll be something stupid. I'm trying to come up with an example. Like with this cup here, like the first ping that I got was about the weird logo on this like coffee logo of how originally it was flipped the other way and then the artist flipped it to that side. Why does that matter? It does not matter, but I know it now and it's been verified. People have been like, how do you know it's true? I'm like, because I've verified enough of the information that I've received to know that it's true. 100%. I mean, the cup thing hasn't been verified, but the gift has been verified.
Don't ever pick up a phone or something mass produced and let that get into your head because it's so depressing.
Oh, it's too much. God. But it's usually just something random and I can't decide what it's going to be, and the information never matters to me. So people have been like, oh, you can help find lost people if you hold their item. I'm like, no, if I hold their item, I'm going to know why they chose green number 7 for that jacket color. Like, I'm not gonna.
That's very specific.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's not broad enough. I could help find missing people with my other psychic abilities. I choose not to because that's not the type of work I like doing. I know that's a horrible thing to say for a lot of people, but that's just, it's too heavy for me and I can't function when I do it.
There are people out there who specialize in it, so let them do that.
Once I became a mom, I became really soft and I can't do that. It just doesn't work. I also cry at My Little Pony. It's fine.
I want to know what episode this was.
All of them. Oh. Every episode. I cry friendship is magic, and then I get teary. Like
gotcha.
Okay, not all of them, but a good amount. Especially the one where they take on the changelings and it's like the side characters are doing it, or like the main characters, and then they rescue all the main characters and they finally all get validated. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's ridiculous.
Friendship really is magic for everybody.
I've watched all of the episodes of My Little Pony because I have children. So
multiple times over.
Yeah.
I don't have children. I just like them.
It's just so good. It's such a good show. Now my kids are like, Mom, we don't want to watch it. We're old for that. I'm like, I don't care.
You're not old for that. C.S. Lewis said when you get old enough to use your imagination again or something like that. Yeah. So to yield something about believing in fairy tales again.
So that's one of my psychic abilities. I can also temporarily remove pain from myself for brief moments, which is nice for relief, but it's not long lasting.
It doesn't stick, right?
Yeah. So it's like, especially with headaches, it's the easiest example because I can do it with other things too. Like I did a lot when my gallbladder was failing. A lot. But like basically if there's like a ball, I can like take the half of it that hurts and just let the other half sit for a second, and this one just kind of disappears off the screen.
Yeah.
But then eventually it has to kind of feed back in and then it comes back. So it's like it can happen. It's just, it doesn't stay. And like I can do healing stuff and like healing work through different systems to like actually get it to stay. But as far as like pain relief, instantaneous, it's like I can give you an instant relief for like literally 5 minutes.
For long enough to get you to Advil.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have something similar because my pursuit of intuition and intuitive stuff was very much in the pursuit of healing modalities. And I winged it for the first bit, right? So I was self-taught for quite a while until I found these modalities that like helped you understand why and what you were doing. Because once you understand how something works, you can make it a little bit more permanent. So it's not like, I know you are also certified with theta healing and stuff, so you know how to go about doing it, but the natural skill to take part of it away is really helpful. Like I can make a headache go away, but like you, I have those mini stroke episodes occasionally. I've never been able to make those stop. I've been able to stave them off. Long enough to get myself to a place where I can like finish a sentence, park the car, whatever has to happen. But at some point they come on, and when they do, they almost like, it's like you held a tide back and then it's now a tsunami. So it's like,
no, I have super bad estrogen based migraines, and I also can't get those to go away when they come. that it's just, but I start to lose vision and I can stop myself from losing vision for like maybe 3 minutes. That's like the window.
Yeah.
And then my vision's gone and then the migraine's happening. So it's usually enough to like get to the medication to take it. So hopefully it doesn't become a migraine, but that's kind of.
Yeah. I'm developing theories on why that is, like how there are some things that are like integral to who we are, that we have more belief work to do or whatever with, you know, like, or it's just the wiring of who we are and it serves a different purpose, but these are the side effects of having it. Because the question becomes like, well, if you have mini strokes, why don't you just heal that in yourself? Great question. I will get back to you on that.
I think mine is ancestral based.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the healing work that we're still struggling with like our physical bodies is because we haven't figured out the ancestral limiting beliefs and blocks to pull and release yet, because they're not ours. So like doing our own stuff.
A lot of digging.
It's
and
so
like
much digging.
No, my heritage for.
There is not actually. Half the time people change their last name because one guy wrote it wrong on a piece of paper at one point. Like that's the whole thing.
My last name has gone through so many misspellings because the guy who came over couldn't write.
Yeah.
So they listened and did their best. And then people were like, that doesn't work. That's not how it would have been. And they've just been jumbling it up ever since.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
My last name came directly from Norway and I'm pretty sure it was Anderson forever.
Yeah.
I'm actually the product of 2 different Anderson groups, Anderson with Ian and Anderson with an O-N. My grandmother on my dad's side married, her last name was Ian and she married an O-N.
So you're like the Anderson.
And we had Ian Owen family reunions, which is just the weirdest shit to me ever. Like imagine if both
Ian
sides of your
Owen.
family had a collective family reunion because of one marriage. That happens in my family.
I feel like I would have, in a hypothetical, if your life was a fantasy novel, you could have had twin boys, one named Ian and one named Owen.
Oh my God, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That's not, no.
No, I
but
know.
now I'm going to name my next rabbits or something.
Ian and Owen, yes.
Why?
Yeah.
Because, yeah. Another, I wouldn't say useless. I want to cue this up. Sometimes people see people as such. Do you want to talk about the dogs?
Oh,
that's
so
a fun
the
psychic ability.
interpreting, yeah. So this isn't my special ability. This is someone that I'm very close to, and I think it's really cool. Some people, as Emily sees guides, and I kind of work through the planetary archetype behind the guides, or as I'm coming to really understand them in a deeper way, the diamond that we work with, DAIMON. Maybe I'll do an episode on that later when I understand it better.
From
you can
Golden Compass.
You can pronounce it that way, and that actually is the same concept. So
yes,
excellent point. In the talk that I was at, Sam Reynolds actually said, you see these represented in the Golden Compass. But there's so much more to it, and it's like this cool thing. I can even tell you how to find the name. But anyway, I can just picture the comments now. What's the name of my diamond? Oof. But yeah, there's sorry. Woof. Okay. Anyway, it's like I'm already thinking.
His movie Home, and his name is Boof. Just like,
if you're asking that question, automatically there's your answer. No, I'm kidding. I don't know if I can offer that as a service or whatever. One day, if it feels right, I will.
Yes.
In the meantime, I'm going to keep exploring it, and then I'll come back to you when I have more information. But anyway, this person that I know sees spirit guides as dog breeds. So he will look at someone and see an aura of a dog or the energy of a dog around them. And he can literally, because he knows the personality of the dogs, will be able to talk about this person and their archetype so spot on. It's really incredible to see. So he'll also see the guide dog over your shoulder. And so everybody's got a good boy or a good girl with them in his perception.
So cute. But again, that's like just very weird, abstract psychic ability stuff. So mostly we share all this one because it's a fun conversation to have. And I think there is a lot more to it, but I know we are kind of getting close to time. But also because if you have an ability that feels just weird or random and you don't have an application for it, just use it as validation that you are definitely intuitively magical. You can either develop an application for it, or you can, just use it as validation whenever it comes through. That's totally fine. One just random thing, I've always used it for validation. I think it's not quite like Alice in Wonderland syndrome when you're like, all of a sudden your body feels big and then small and whatever. I get that too, but that's like something different. But it's almost like you know, that wah, wah, wah feeling, but if it was your energy.
Mhm.
And I've had that my whole life whenever something really important is about to happen. So I've always
Yeah.
taken it as validation, or like that I'm going deeper, whatever. Now, currently I've been working a lot with shifting, and I know I'm getting close to shifting when that comes up, which we can have to talk a different episode on that. But that's another thing too, is sometimes maybe your psychic ability is just a validation of the other psychic thing you're doing, or the life thing that you're doing. So just to highlight all of that, all of those are coming through different clairsenses. Obviously, there's 8 clairsenses. We've done a whole episode on those. So if you listen to this and you want to try have some fun identifying the clairsenses, figure out which ones we use for each of those abilities. And that's a fun little exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does show that there is an existence of senses, and then you can branch out from there and like create specialties or whatever. It just gives you your natural inclination and talent.
Yeah.
And then you can work from there. And sometimes that thing will develop into a specialty, or it will just always be this weird thing that you can be like, hey, in 20 minutes it might rain. Hope that helps.
Yeah, the person was really sweaty when they shaped this desk.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice? Like, there we are.
Yep.
Cool. So really quick before we answer a quick question, let's bookend.
So I've been doing a lot of research this month for my Astromagia talk. So a lot of my reading has been nonfiction and astrological. I read Planet Narnia, which is just theorizing that each of the Narnia books in the saga of 7 is actually for one of the traditional planets, and it goes into a lot of detail and exposition, and it was amazing. And I'm using it in my talk. I read Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces, which is about the hero's journey and the psychology and the monomyth, which is cool. And now I'm finishing up Percy Jackson and the Olympians because I want to read some like Greek mythology based fiction that's really fun in preparation for our trip to Greece that's coming up next year. And if you want to see all of this stuff actually thrown into an astrological magic talk, which, yeah, that happened, I will be doing Astromagia on October 10th. And I will also be doing KazimiCon, which is being hosted via Twitter, which I'm really excited about. And that's going to be more like for astrologers, how to bring storytelling into consultations, but bringing story and the myth in renewed ways is going to be more the focus of Astromagia on October 10th.
Yes, please go watch them. It's going to be really,
It's
really
gonna be
cool.
really cool.
I'm really excited
I'm
for your
stoked.
talk. I love the idea of the Narnia planet situation. I have a Narnia tattoo. I love Narnia. I've read those books. They are my original comfort series. I've read them so much that I've bought new copies of them because I destroyed them. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I know there's always like people are like, oh, it's a religious series. The one book is. One book is Christian. The rest are not.
But if you think about
like
the monomyth, right? The archetypes are across all of the backgrounds. It's one truth with different dialects.
Yeah.
And that, of course, is my personal belief, but it's checked out every time I've looked into it. And so, you do have Jupiter also being the Christ, also being, a bunch of other things. So it really is that monomyth is the one language that everybody can speak. So yeah, it's both and. Yeah. Which I think is totally allowed in so many ways.
It's just really interesting because like, I know The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, like people are like, oh, it's the Jesus story. I'm like, yeah, it is. But if you actually think about it, it's actually more of the, if you read all of the books, it's actually more of a progression of myth through time, because the very first book, The Magician's Nephew, is paganism, 100%. It is 100% it's a book about paganism. It just very much is. And then it moves to like a Christianity story. And then it moves out from there further and further and further until they're like, they're dead and they're looking back on the world basically. And that is a very higher new age spirituality level concept because it's not heaven in the typical Christian sense. So I'm all for Narnia. I think it's the best.
And Planet Narnia actually takes into consideration where C.S. Lewis was in his journey and his philosophy at the time, and from people who spoke with him and were in his little club. So it was really, really cool.
The only I have tattoos from most of the club, except I haven't got my Tolkien tattoo yet. So I'm like excited for when I want a Hobbit door. Anyway,
so what were you reading this month?
This month I've started off the month. What did I finish? Hold on. I read 4 volumes of Spy Family, the manga. It's so good. So cute. It's so cute. I love it with all of my being. It's the best. I highly recommend it. I cannot recommend it enough. And it was just really fun. And then I finished A Lady for a Duke at the very beginning, very, very beginning of this month, which is Bridgerton, except the main character is a trans female, and it's just the most, it's so fucking cute. It's, if you have a Bridgerton hangover, you should read it. If you just want to see like real representation and real love in that time, it's a friends to lover story, and it's just, it made me warm and fuzzy, and I loved it with all of my heart. It was so cute. And then I read The Poppy War, just the first book. That was not cute. Weston and I started reading it on a road trip, or listening to it on a road trip. First of all, the narration is amazing. I highly recommend you listen to it in audiobook form. Second of all, really cool, high vibration story for sure in a lot of ways, especially the way they approach spirituality. If I'm being 100% honest, and I know this isn't exactly it, it is China's perspective on World War II, if World War II happened in a fantasy setting.
Huh. So like allegory.
Yeah, very much so. And that's like the second half of the book is diving in if there were like a World War III basically sort of situation, but without the world. It's just like, it's really cool, but that's definitely where it comes from. So they do a lot of R.F. Kuang is the name of the author who also wrote Babel, which just came out.
That's my next read.
And she dives a lot into the like lore of the different cultures in Asia and how they apply. And it's just, it's really, really cool. It's really well done. They talk about the use of psychedelics a lot to like get into a meditative state. It's really neat, and it's really high vibration. And I'm probably going to talk more about it once I finish the series, because I want to get the series done. But it's a really good read. It's very heavy though. Please check your trigger warnings, especially during part 2 of the book. Please check your trigger warnings.
Good to know. Thank you for that.
There was one part where even and I don't usually get super triggered by stuff, but I was like, ooh, I might need to go watch something fuzzy after that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
In our household, Dan will look at me and see it on my face and say, do you need a corgi? And the answer is always yes.
He has 2. It's like, I just grabbed this one. You can have that one.
Zelda's usually the first one on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. So really quick, this question is actually coming off of the TikTok, because we didn't have anyone in the Patreon ask a question, but we wanted to give you an idea again of how we're going to answer these questions. Again, there's 3 tiers to the Patreon. The top tier gets to ask us a question that we will answer at the end of each episode. Please ask us questions. Please join the Patreon. If you want more information, feel free to email us at forgottenstorytellers@gmail.com. You get fun perks, like you get an episode early, you get to vote on the episode topics. There's going to be a bonus video every month, as well as you get to ask us questions and we get to answer them. So this one actually comes off of the TikTok Q&A, and I'll probably make a video about this as well for a more general audience, but we thought that it would be really cool for you all to get this as well.
Yeah, I just remembered what we're doing here. Oh,
you ready? And we're going to answer it
so
quickly
ready.
because we are running out of
So
time.
this is the Reader's Digest version of a really big thought process.
Really big thought process. Okay, so the question is, what is your opinion on psychics saying that there's only light and love? So if so, is there no such thing as stuck ghosts or no evil spirits? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And we're going to do this really abbreviated because we could do an entire episode on this, and I'm going to be totally honest, but do you want to kick us off?
Just saw my face on the video.
I was like,
so
you're not.
I have, to me, it's like a both and, because there's this thing, I think I'm going to start with what I call God smacks. So ideally, and Marianne Williamson says the same thing about like, what happens when we actually reach heaven? We're just going to be happy all the time. Like, won't that be boring? And like, I'm of that camp too. And she's like, I don't know, living in constant ecstasy sounds fun to me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm an adventurer. Like, I want something to do. Like, there better be bungee jumping in heaven or something. I don't know. But to me, it's like things go really well. And then there's multiple things that can happen. You have plateaued. Now you get to level up. So there's some adversity to help you really reach in and find that potential to bring up. And it's kind of like when you're working out, you know, you start out with a 20, but eventually 20 gets easy. So you move up to 25. And that's kind of what it's like when you're leveling up spiritually and in life and all of those things as well. Or even with your practice in magic. Which was advice I got from my sorcerer friend too, that I thought was really cool to think about. So then things get progressively harder. If you listen and take it, yes, you have challenge, but challenge can also be fun, and you level up right away. Not all of us, me included, listen the first time. So you get something that's harder and says, hey, and it's like in astrology, we have aspects, right? So you have like the opposition was like, hey, reflect on this. There's some tension here. The square is where it gets real. The square is like, hey, there's some conflict now. And this is what I like to call the God smack, where basically you kept going along and going along and going along, and progressively the universe or God is like, hey, like how loud do I have to shout before you actually turn around and say what, before you jump over this cliff by accident? So for me, I do believe that there are entities out there whose function it is to be the dark shadow, to be the shadow side of things, to sort of express this is what you don't want. Hey, this is where you want to stop, because it's the don't go further than this. This is your boundary. This is the border of where you should be, kind of thing. So I do believe that demons can do nasty things. I also think
I think
that
angels can do nasty things too,
I think,
though.
yeah,
Like, I
but-
don't think it's a race thing on that
Yeah,
space, like
yeah.
a type of, but you know, I get what you're saying. I don't
Yeah.
mean to like throw you off, but
yeah.
yeah.
So I'm sorry, I'm holding on to a concept here. So like you will, like, every once in a while I'll feel a demon in the room and I'll be like, oh crap, what did I miss? And if you listen, you get to hear the story, and you can actually work with the energy, go through the challenge, come out on the other side, you know, a little bit more actualized. It really is a hero's journey kind of thing. Sometimes though, I do think that we have to go through the trial, because there's just something about hitting a rock bottom, which I will tell you I'm experiencing right now in some parts of my life. I'm not saying it's easy, but there is something about hitting a rock bottom that really changes your whole worldview. Like, that is where the death and rebirth can come in. And sometimes you have to break the bone so it can set properly. So I think that everything has a function, and that it is to help us progress in one way or another. And it's not always rainbows and butterflies. But I think on the other side of it, if you can find your way and you know, do things in accordance with your integrity, with your values, up-leveling your values, allowing yourself to grow, you will find that other side. And it's not guiding yourself into the darkness and staying there situation.
Yeah.
It's going into the darkness, becoming something new, and then coming back out to repeat a cycle and just continue spiraling upwards in your progress.
I appreciate that take on like the personal growth side of it, because I totally agree. What I'm going to add to is, whenever people, how am I going to say this in a way that's going to be good? Okay. Whenever people are talking about, oh, there's only love and light, they're using their own unique and individual sense of morality to decide what love and light is, which is fucking false, because none of us have the actual understanding of morality as far as a universal concept does. We have the earth understanding of morality, which varies a bit from each of us anyway, but we have the earth understanding of morality at the core of it. A long time ago, you know, I've had people ask like, oh, have you channeled, you know, serial killers? Do they have spirit guides? Those sorts of things. And my guides were literally like, the world does not operate off of your sense of morality, Emily. Like,
it's not about you.
It's not about you. And it's not, you know, I was pissed. I'm like, they do. And those guides are guiding them in their life plan, which happens to be this way. And that fucking sucks. And I don't like that. And the guides were like, too damn bad. Like, that's not up to you. It doesn't matter. And that's kind of, I think, the core of it. So I think when psychics are like, oh, it's all love and light, it's bypassing. It's spiritual bypassing. It makes no sense, because it can't all be love and light in their concept and worldview of it, because that is bypassing all of the other stuff. Now, when I say everything, when I'm talking about everything being love and light, I don't ever really talk about it in that way in the first place. I guess there could be a case made for saying, if everything is love and light, that means that everything is love and light, which means that everything is part of this plan, which means that everything is in alignment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I do think for our earth-based experience here, you've got to count the fact that there are definitely evil or very low vibration entities out there. And those are sometimes people, and those are sometimes not people. And that's just the reality of this current realm of existence. And whenever someone's like, oh, you can love and light this away, it's completely invalidating all of those other experiences. And it's a lot of bypassing most of the time, because most people that I've ever seen talk about it are not talking about it in that universal truth sort of perspective.
Well, and even to take it, if you're always like, I know growing up Christian, and I still believe this in a sense, and I'm going to explain why, we were brought up with well, what would Jesus do? Or for my cousins, it was, what would Grandmother Willow do? Because that was one of the moral compasses for a kid to be able to relate really and think about it. It was adorable. But like, I like to say, even Jesus flipped a table. So just because Jesus was someone who said, love each other, does not mean that loving each other is always allowing people to walk all over you, or is allowing people to do whatever you want. Sometimes the best way to love someone is to tell them no. Sometimes the best way to love someone is to have an intervention. Sometimes the best way to love someone is to say, this is where it needs to stop. This is hurting you. And I know you don't enjoy this facet of it. but this is where I need to tell you, no, I won't be an enabler. Sometimes the best way to love someone is to separate from them for a while so that they can figure themselves out and you can become a version of yourself that's healthy again in order to do whatever comes next. I'm not saying you always have to go back to relationships that were draining from you. The best way to love someone is to understand what love truly means. And I will often find myself in a circumstance where I don't know what to do and just say, okay, the most loving thing I can do right now is, and sometimes it's, I can see from their perspective, kind of like you talk about being able to see what's happening, what happened when this desk was being made. I can see what made them that way. That does not mean that I agree with the way that they're reacting because of it.
Yeah.
And I don't have to perpetuate that cycle for them. I can help them break that cycle. And sometimes that's through challenging them. Like I am someone, if you dare me, I will be more incentivized to do something. It's just in my nature. I'm Mars ruled. Mars is like my Almatin Figuris and everything. So there's a lot of Mars going on.
So funny because I'm like,
surface.
what's the reward system?
Do I get points for that?
Am I going to get a candy?
Yeah.
Like, let's just be real.
Yeah. But again, so the
Venus
loving
ruled.
you the best way is incentivizing. For
100%.
me, it's like challenging me. And so how does that person respond? And so sometimes you are the negative in someone's life because adversity is what's going to create and foster change and growth. Or sometimes I was called for one of my original bullies became one of my best friends over the course of high school, which is a great story. But by senior year was known as their pink fluffy cloud because I would defend them from other people who would say things that I didn't like, even though as far as we were concerned, we were enemies, but like I was the only one allowed to be the enemy. So it was this weird situation. But also like if I have someone to protect, or if I have something to defend, or if I have something that I believe in that I can pursue, I do well. If I have an obstacle to overcome to prove to myself and others that there's strength there, it's a blessing and a curse. I get it. It's not always the healthiest expression. I am not perfect. But to me, that is the best way to love me. If you're going to be someone who loves me, validate my feelings and then say, I bet you can do this. Show yourself you can do it. Like encourage me from the sidelines, empower me to do things and give me an obstacle course to run. And I will be so happy. But for other people, like even my own family, it's saying, hey, you do have a place here. You're making a bigger difference than you can see. Relax, like allow yourself to not overwork. And so everybody's so unique and different. They have to be loved uniquely and differently as well.
Yeah.
And that's not always turning the other cheek in the way that we've come to understand it, which is not the original intention.
No. Yeah.
Don't let people walk all over you.
That is the Cliff Notes version of that. And both of us could go on
That's
for like
the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah. A long, long time in that space. As a rule of thumb, if someone's out there saying it's all love and light,
they might be going through something.
Don't just do that. There's more to life and work in that. And also sometimes, I know we're going to do a spooky stories sort of situation later in the month and we're really excited about it, but I have come in contact with some entities where I'm like, you are fucking evil. Do not come near me and I will blow you apart. Like go away. Anyway, that's a bigger story there, but so yes, that there's not just all love and light, and we hope that was helpful.
I ran a holistic shop for a while, and every single day in that shop for the community that I was in, I had to purge the demons or the fallens from the entire town because they were just so icky. So they exist.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I've had them attached too, before I was very intuitively understanding what they were. Yeah. It's shit.
They're icky. Yeah. Like the other day,
not fun.
I realized that there was an attachment. I was like, oh, I'm feeling this miserable because there's an attachment, but it helped me realize. And then I was able to resolve and move forward and learn, because learning is the goal in situations like that, at least for most of my experience.
Yeah, no, I mean, yes, I fully agree. Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you all so much for listening. Again, if you have any questions on any of this, please comment below on the YouTube, send us an email. If you have suggestions for subjects, we will put them into our Patreon to vote on. So please let us know if there's people you want to interview, by all means, let us know that too. Thank you so much for being here. This is super fun. We get to be in the same room. I feel like we have more fun with it in the same room, and it's just really nice.
You know what else happens in the same room that's going to be better for everybody?
What?
The thing that we get to say right now, because when you count down, I don't have to start on 2.
Oh my gosh. Okay, ready?
Okay.
Here we go. We're all going to 1, 2, 3. Go make some magic.
We know that works.
We know that works. We did. Yeah. Bye, everyone.